Hello and welcome to this video, which is called the weeding out process. I love this part of the program and this particular strategy that you can use and implement because at this point in time, you've probably been saying, oh, that's all well and good for you, Wendy, but I have this perpetual negative thoughts that keep coming up. So how on earth do I deal with them? So this is what we're going to cover today, the weeding out process. It's about working on the mind because you need to learn how to select your thoughts just the same way you select your clothes every day. This is a power that you can cultivate. If you want to control things in your life so bad and you want to change things in your life so bad, you simply work on the mind. That's the only thing that you should be trying to control. So how do we get in control? So positive thinking is only the first step. We know that people go, oh, you've got to think positively. Yep, and I hear you, I'm thinking positively. But really, it is the tip of the iceberg. Thinking positively is just the first step. We then start with that self-observation. So we start listening for the BS. We start listening for the bullshit that keeps coming up, and we start acknowledging what those thoughts are. And you know, part of the technique is to do that self-observation. So if we don't know that they exist, we don't know how to fix it. And I always say that you're always halfway there when you can label it, you can identify what the challenge is. So getting control is about thinking positively. It's about the self-observation, knowing what's going on in the mind first, and affirming what it is that you want in life, not what you don't want. Because so many people, if you stop and listen, so that's that self-observation, and listen to your language, we actually say a lot of things that we don't want. So even when somebody asks you, hi, how are you? I'm okay. So why would you say you're okay? Why wouldn't you say I'm amazing? Or that's just so subtle, just so, just a tiny level. But the words that we use are very powerful. I've talked about that so much in this program, but we need to constantly affirm what it is that we want. Our words, we need to self-observe those words, and then we replace the negative thoughts with another thought that serves us. We've got to learn to stop feeding the beast. We've got to stop feeding that negative mind. Because remember, our thoughts are vibrations of energy that are either working for us or against us. And again, I spoke about if you've walked into a room and you've gone, ooh, you can feel it in the air if somebody's had an argument. And it's the same circumstance. You've come into a room and somebody's just been laughing or there's been celebrations, and you can feel that in the room. Our words and our thoughts create vibrations of energy. They are very, very powerful. So it's not to be underestimated. So how do we get rid of those negative thoughts? I like to think of them like a garden. Think of those negative thoughts as weeds. Is your garden full of weeds, or is it nicely manicured, well cared for? So the mind is the garden and the weeds are the negative thoughts. The manicured, lovely landscape garden is a positive mindset and a mind that is flourishing and is empowering you, as opposed to an overgrown, weedy garden that is disempowering and not serving you and is negative. So how do we get from one to the other? Do we grab that whippersnipper and do we get out there and just start hoeing down on them? Well, we could, but what happens with those weeds if we just take the top off? They're still there, aren't they? They're still there under the surface. And that's what I was referring to in regards to really getting into the deep-seated the positive mindset is just the tip of the iceberg. So we could get that whippersnipper and we could completely whippersnipper all of those weeds off, but that's just the positive thinking. It's the tip of the iceberg, because then those weeds come back, and as they surface again underneath, they haven't really been removed. So we don't want to just whippersnipper them. We want to actually pull those weeds out, roots and all, one by one. And the roots are embedded in our subconscious. The roots are embedded in our subconscious mind. And the positive thinking is happening in our conscious mind. But remember, all of our beliefs and our emotions are embedded within our subconscious. So that's what we want to do. We want to weed them out one at a time. You are not your mind. So you need to cultivate your mind just like a garden in order to remove the thoughts that are no longer serving you. 4 techniques. The first technique is called the cut it off technique. The second technique is called the observe and label technique. The third technique is called the exaggerate technique. And the fourth technique is called the counteract or the opposite technique. So let's go through them individually. The first, the cut off technique. So here's a negative thought. It's come into your mind and you cut it off. Now, you know it's a negative thought. It could be fear, it could be worry, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be jealousy, rage, anger, whatever it is. You know it when it comes in. Cut it off. The second technique is the observe and label it. And that's, you could even sit there during a meditation process, or you could just do it throughout the day. So again, when we're driving in the car, we know this, our mind doesn't stop. We've got thousands of thoughts that are just coming in and out of our mind all day long. But we don't want to feed the beast. We want to stop it. So let's just observe it. And you could try these techniques and spend one day on each of them. So the observe and label it. And I've done this in both a meditative state, so sitting just in a quiet place and just observing them. And you could say jealousy, anger, fear, anxiety, acknowledging them as they come in, okay? Observe them, label them. Then we've got the exaggerate technique. So the exaggerate technique could be, the thought comes in, I can't exercise today because it's too cold outside. That's a negative thought. I can't exercise this morning because it's too cold outside. So let's exaggerate that. Oh, it's just so cold outside. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to freeze to death right there on the footpath. I'm going to freeze to death and my legs are just going to fall off. Or I'm going to freeze to death. My legs are going to fall off and then I'm not going to be. Do you know what I mean? You just keep going, whatever that thought is, and just make it sound so silly. Now, the exaggerate technique works really well for the scenarios or the stories that we play out in our mind. And those stories, we know, come on, we all know the stories, the videos, the movies that you play out about scenarios that have not even happened yet. And so play them out until they just get so silly you laugh. So then the counteract, or the opposite, which is probably one of my favorites. And that's just to say the complete opposite. So, if that thought comes up that I can't afford it, well, I can afford it. I have an abundance of money. I couldn't do that fun run. I can't run. I can run. I love to run. Running gives me energy. So you would be aware of those constant thoughts that keep coming up and are impacting on you they're your roadblocks. They're impacting on you from moving forward. Identify them and find a statement, a productivity statement, or an affirmation, and we will be covering affirmations in this week, that will counteract the belief that you have or the negative thought that keeps rising. 4 very powerful techniques. I have my favorite. Try them all, okay? Try them all because they're very powerful, and together they will help you remove your weeds. So weeding your garden regularly, cultivate and nurture your garden, and continue to plant new seeds each and every day. I know that I would like my garden to be manicured and well nurtured. And if we've got a garden that's full of weeds, we want to put some seeds in there, and we want to plant flowers and lovely plants that we can look after and enjoy. And that seeding is what affirmations are all about, contemplating and affirmations. So it's about being aware of what those thoughts are. It's using the weeding technique to get rid of them and seeding them with new thoughts. And that's done with our affirmations and our productivity statements. And we do that through that weeding process. Don't be fooled to thinking, yeah, I've got this. And you have a good day, a good week, or maybe a good month, and then you stop doing it. Because what happens is if we leave our garden unattended, the weeds creep back in. Just like a well-manicured and cultivated garden is cared for on a regular basis, so is our mind. We must consciously give it the time that it needs every day, every week, every month, and every year. We don't stop working on our mind. It becomes layers. We layer it. So what we're working on this week is not what we'll be working on this time in a month's time, or in a year's time, or in 2 years' time. We constantly keep building and adding to it different stages of how we learn to control our mind. So nurture your garden every day. Don't take it for granted. And care for it like you would a child's mind. You think about your child's mind and how you protect it from all of the things in especially the first 7 years of its life, where it's it's like a sponge. We make sure that there are only good thoughts and positive thoughts and the right things that we believe that our children need to hear or see when they're in such a vulnerable state, so in such a young state. because all of our program is done in our first 7 years. So just like a child's mind, you know, what you watch, what you read, anything that comes in through your ears, through your eyes, needs to be serving you, and it needs to have a filtration system on how you can actually use those thoughts to either keep or get rid of. So nurture your garden every day and keep it trim, keep it taut, and keep it terrific. I'll see you in the next video.